And North Country State Senator Dan Steck joins us now. Welcome. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Tom. Thank you.
You voted against the budget. Why did you do that? What is in it that you particularly don't like?
Sure. Well, I mean, the bottom line on the no vote on the budget is literally the bottom line, $217.6 billion. And to put that in perspective, because, I mean, everyone knows the state budget's a lot of money. It's always in the billions. But when you start, trying to get your hands around and compare it relative to other states or even our own history, 2 years ago, the state's budget was $173.5 billion. So in 2 years, we've increased the state budget 25%. $217 billion is more money than the budgets of Texas and Florida combined. And they have 50 million people. We have 19.5 million people. So the bottom line is that this spending is irresponsible and it's not sustainable. We had $12.6 billion fall out of the sky from Washington, D.C. And when I say fall out of the sky, that's taxpayer money. That's our money. And even Senator Schumer said there's been enough. We're so flush with federal money that there's no need to raise taxes. And yet this budget raises taxes by almost $5 billion. There's $2.1 billion that's going to go, that is dedicated to illegal immigrants' unemployment because they weren't eligible for unemployment because they're illegal immigrants. And so we needed a workaround to put cash in the pockets of illegal immigrants to the tune of $2.1 billion. And at the same time, only $1 billion went towards small business recovery. I mean, so where are our priorities? So the governor called this a recovery budget. This is a recovery budget that will take years to recover from.
The budget includes more than $29 billion for schools. Is that a record amount for education?
Every year you wait and see, well, what did the formula do to my school districts? And every member goes through the list and sees how their schools did. And the eyes were popping and the jaws were dropping in the conference room at how much money was there. So I'm sure that the educators are very pleased with this budget. It is record spending, $1.4 billion additional dollars in foundation aid, and that's the first of 3 years. So we're on a program where automatically we're going to be increasing, if we stick to the program, foundation aid by $1 billion+ a year each of the next 2 upcoming years. New York has definitely funded its education in this budget.
What are some of the other good things in the budget for the North Country?
There's some work in there for broadband. The governor had pocket vetoed a good bill this past January. The budget addresses it, but my concerns about it is that the budget language wasn't as strong as the bill that was in front of us. We're not putting as much financial resources into that solution, which tells me that these maps that we're looking to produce are not going to be as detailed as are needed. So, I'm a little suspicious as to whether or not the forward progress that we made is going to be enough. I am concerned with the $15 per month of feasibility for our internet providers. They consulted with the big ones, Verizon and Spectrum, and they asked them, hey, help us design the new rules for getting to affordable $15 a month broadband. And they were happy to help them come up with a plan that worked for the big guys. The big guys aren't in these small niche markets in the North Country. It's the little guys. It's the Slicks of the world, and they weren't consulted. And it's a different business and a different model that they're in, and they're fearful that the new rules on what they can charge for internet service is going to make them not competitive, and frankly, it could put their business at risk. So then we could go from having some availability, but maybe not at $15 a month, to having no availability because we're closing these businesses.
And there was $92 million for ORDA to continue the capital funding for ORDA in preparation of the 2023 World University Games.
We made a decision as a state years ago that we wanted to keep these facilities. I remember advocating at the time, hey, we need to decide, are we going to keep these or not? If we're going to keep them, then we have to update them and maintain them. So we've started that process. We're in the middle of this construction program, but they're not finished, so they needed to carry that forward. I mean, I'm pleased that we're going to have these facilities available, and we'll be able to host these events. But again, when we're spending this kind of money, it was really difficult for me to cheerlead and yell and scream, hey, but I want we're spending too much money, but not enough in my district. But this was an obligation that the state had made years ago that, I mean, we're in a position where you just can't walk away from it. We needed to move forward. So I think we did the right thing there, but $92 million is still a lot of money.
Within the final days before the budget was addressed and passed, the legislature voted to legalize the recreational use of marijuana, New York becoming the 16th state to do so. How did you vote on this? In the past, you have been outspoken against this.
Yep, and I still am. Talking to substance abuse professionals, addiction services people, certainly talking to prosecutors and the law enforcement officials, my sheriffs. The law enforcement community is adamantly opposed to it. Road safety, there's no test for driving high. You're going to have people working high and driving high now, and that's the concern of the law enforcement community. I reject the idea that somehow this is a financial windfall. I mean, we just spent $217 billion. We got $12.5 billion from the federal government. We're giving $2.1 billion away to illegal immigrants. We aren't going to be bringing in billions of dollars of revenue to cover all that with marijuana. And marijuana legalization is going to increase social costs. We're going to have more addiction services. It's going to create as many problems. And so the net gain that we're going to see financially from marijuana is not going to pan out. It hasn't panned out in other states.
And North Country Assemblyman Billy Jones joins us now. Welcome. It's good to see you.
Great to see you as always.
Did you vote for this budget?
The big revenue part of it, no. I did not vote for revenue, which is the big bill at the end, the big ugly. The figures that were thrown around were a little bit too much for me, and so I voted no on that.
I think the numbers we heard were surprising to a lot of people, that this budget ballooned to $217 billion.
It is an eye-popping amount, Tom. It's, a lot of it, comes from this stimulus package. I'm not making an excuse for the amount. It's an eye-popping amount to anybody, but we did receive a lot of federal stimulus package. And of course, we put the wealth tax on there for our wealthier individuals in New York State.
Included in the budget, about $4 to $5 billion in taxes on the super wealthy. Did you support that?
That was in the revenue, so I didn't vote for it. But the argument can be made that, for these larger corporations that have made an exorbitant amount of money, even during the pandemic, that they should pay their fair share.
Is this a good budget for education?
This is an enormous budget for education. Education did very well here. This is the largest spending. Of course, we had a lot of that federal money on top of that. This is it's by far and away the most generous education budget that I have seen and that many of my colleagues have seen. And I would think that people would be happy with what we did.
What are some of the other highlights in there that you like that are good for the North Country?
You know what, Tom? There's a lot of money in here that is going to get to my constituents or projects or help my constituents and residents here in the North Country. We did very well in regards to infrastructure. CHIPS funding went up that many of our local highway departments depend on to keep our road maintenance. Extreme winter recovery money went up to $100 million. Pave New York was an increase. I've always talked about infrastructure. You and I have talked about it before. Infrastructure in the North Country, roads and bridges are what people use. They need to have. We're in a very rural area. They drive their cars on them. They deserve to have good infrastructure. I'm pleased with that. I also was able to secure some more money for our Quebec, New York relationship, which is very important. Small business relief. Yes, I'm going to say it here. New York State is coming to the aid of small business. We had an enormous package for small business relief, upwards in the total of over $800 million. Those will go to small businesses in the form of grants that will actually help our small businesses out during this pandemic.
Well, you mentioned infrastructure. The broadband study is funded. Along with that is the proposal by the governor for the low-cost internet service being provided to needy families, $15 a month. Do you applaud that as well, or does that create problems for some of the smaller providers here in the North Country if they have to be able to offer internet at that cut rate cost?
That's a good question. And I have raised concerns about this. Believe me, I want to see everybody have affordable internet. I want to see, across the spectrum, everyone have affordable internet. There's no way that we can put this mandate on those smaller companies when they're trying to build out more. We need accessibility, accessibility, accessibility. We can talk about affordability. I want affordability there, but I am concerned about this. We're going to have to go back and look even more what this contains. They said it would, be that these smaller companies would be exempt. I don't know if the number that they put in there gets us there yet. I'm going to have to talk to those providers, and we're going to have to take a look at this.
The broadband study is good, though, and needed, in your opinion, to really map who doesn't have broadband accessibility.
We need that data to prove to the broadband office that, hey, you know what, just because one person in a census block, or one household I should say in a census block, has broadband service doesn't mean that area is covered. Or just because somebody has availability to satellite internet doesn't mean that that area or even that household is covered. This will give us a look into that and a study to prove to the broadband office, and to work with providers. We have to work with the providers to get those people that service. And believe me, this has been my issue since I took office. It's been my issue long before that when I was with the county government. I want to see affordable broadband and internet service to every household in New York, and especially in the North Country.
The Senate One House bill gave the governor the authority to close even more prisons. Do you know, did the Assembly have anything like that, any language? And do you think in the final budget there's any language that allows the governor to do what he's been able to do the last couple of budget cycles and choose 2, 3, or more prisons to close?
Yeah, we did not have it in our Assembly One House budget. Unfortunately, it did get into the final budget. I voted no on that part of the budget. It was public protection. I just think giving the governor authority to close these facilities, and we've seen the impact that it has had on my area. I'm not saying mass incarceration should be, a system that we should build our economy upon, but us here in the North Country have taken our hits on this.
And we just saw with this last budget cycle, Clinton Annex was closed, one of the 3 prisons that closed by the governor. Does the language in this final budget give him the authority to close as many prisons as he wants?
There is not language specific to how many beds. That's usually what the department goes on, how many beds that gives him the authority to. So it's wide open, and it's just too much. That's why I believe we shouldn't have granted him this.
The final days before the budget vote, the legislature passed legalized recreational marijuana, adult use recreational marijuana. How did you vote on that? We know that leading up to it, the many times we've talked with you, you had some real concerns about that.
I understand the justice part of this, and my colleagues and wanting criminal justice reform. 2 years ago, I voted to decriminalize low levels of possession of marijuana, and we did that. Some of my concerns are, and they're legitimate concerns, certainly with the driver impairment of it, and everybody says, well, they're doing it anyway. Well, you know what? We lost a lot of lives before we had strict DWI laws in this country regarding alcohol, right? We lost thousands and thousands of lives. Why would we make that mistake again? Why are we making that mistake again? Let's put these in place. I don't have an issue with as far as, the use, but we need some kind of regulations in place for this.